Imagine a school bus surrounded by a gang of violent bikers on a deserted road. Fear takes over, children cry, and it seems like no one is coming to help. Until two mysterious cars appear, a powerful black Jeep and a classic red Mustang. Inside them are Dwayne Johnson and Tom Cruise, two icons known for defeating villains on the big screen. What happened next? How did two Hollywood stars take on a dangerous gang to protect innocent lives? If you want to know how this unbelievable story unfolds, watch until the end. And of course, click the like button, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more impactful stories like this one. Now get comfortable wherever you are, because the story you're about to hear will leave you speechless. The road stretched across a dry, deserted landscape, surrounded by scorched vegetation and distant mountains. It was a hot afternoon, and the asphalt seemed to shimmer under the heat. A school bus was slowly making its way back to the city after a long field trip. Inside, laughter and excited voices blended with the muffled hum of the engine. The children, still full of energy, chatted about everything they had seen. Some were drawing on the dust-covered windows, while others traded stickers and shared snacks. The driver, an elderly man with graying hair and a tired expression, kept his focus on the road. His sharp eyes alternated between the rearview mirror, where he monitored the children's behavior, and the side mirror, where he occasionally glanced at the empty road. He knew this stretch was rarely traveled and was generally safe, but accidents or unexpected situations could always occur. In the distance, a group of bikers appeared. The deep growl of their engines grew like distant thunder, shattering the peaceful atmosphere. They emerged as menacing silhouettes on the horizon, closing in fast. There were 5 of them, all dressed in worn leather jackets marked with faded emblems and bandanas covering the lower halves of their faces. The gang leader, larger and more imposing than the others, had tattoos covering his exposed arms, and his eyes were cold and intimidating. As they approached the bus, the driver felt a knot tighten in his chest. He tried to remain calm but couldn't ignore the impending danger. The gang leader accelerated, bringing his motorcycle level with the driver's window. Their eyes met, and the biker's piercing gaze made the driver's hands tense on the wheel. The bikers began to surround the bus. Some banged on the windows with their helmets, while others brandished chains and clubs. The children, sensing the rising tension, gradually fell silent. The innocent laughter faded, replaced by fear. Some curled up in their seats while others tried to hide behind the chairs. A little girl clung to her younger brother, trying to shield him. Tears welled in her eyes as she watched the growing anxiety on the driver's face. The gang leader suddenly slammed a heavy chain against the side of the bus, the metallic impact echoing through the air. The tension spiked. The bikers shouted menacing words, mocking the children's fear, like predators savoring the terror of their prey. The road stretched across the vast desert, a straight line of asphalt surrounded by arid mountains and dry vegetation. The sun, already beginning to descend on the horizon, painted the sky in shades of gold and orange, casting long shadows over the cracked ground. The heat of the day still lingered in the air, making the asphalt seem to shimmer under the accumulated warmth. In the distance, a school bus traveled its lonely path, returning from a field trip. But something was wrong. 5 motorcycles appeared in the driver's rearview mirror, like wolves circling their prey. The rumble of their engines, once just a distant noise lost in the vast desert, now intensified, resonating like a dark omen. The driver felt a chill run down his spine. He was no longer alone on that road, and that was not a good sign. The bikers approached with confidence, accelerating around the bus like predators playing with their prey before the attack. They banged on the metal body, dragged chains across the asphalt, taunted the children who watched in fear from the windows. Some shouted jeers that were lost in the roar of the motorcycles. The driver swallowed hard, trying to stay calm, but his hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. He knew the police were miles away. No one was coming to help. But someone was already on the way. A few miles away, 2 vehicles moved along the road in opposite directions. On one side, a black Jeep advanced steadily, its rugged tires crushing the gravel along the shoulder. Dwayne Johnson drove with the composure of someone who dominated any environment. His broad frame filled the driver's seat with authority, and his strong fingers gripped the wheel securely. He wore a simple t-shirt and a sporty cap, his sharp eyes scanning the road. He had spent the day at a promotional event for his new energy drink brand. It was supposed to be a quiet day, a worry-free drive home. But when his eyes caught the strange movement in the distance, his instincts rang like an alarm. He furrowed his brow, adjusted his position in the seat. He recognized this kind of behavior. Biker gangs intimidating innocent people were nothing new to him. Dwayne exhaled deeply, assessing the scene. The bus was in danger, and he knew he couldn't just drive past and ignore it. His heart quickened slightly, but not from fear, from determination. On the other side, coming from the opposite direction, a classic red Mustang sliced through the wind. The engine purred smoothly as it glided along the road, its tires gripping each turn with precision. Inside, Tom Cruise drove with a calm but alert gaze. The warm wind rushed through the open window, slightly tousling his hair. He enjoyed these solitary drives, taking a moment to unwind after an intense day of filming. But what he saw ahead made his chest tighten. The bus surrounded, the bikers provoking, the imminent danger. Adrenaline surged through his body. His fingers tightened around the wheel, and his mind had already begun calculating distances, speed, possible strategies. He was used to handling impossible situations, but this time there were no stunt doubles, no scene cuts. He pressed the accelerator slightly, feeling the engine respond with precision. He had to act. And at that exact moment, Dwayne and Tom's eyes met. Even from a distance, they recognized each other instantly. No words were needed. No gestures required. The understanding was immediate. Two men used to being heroes on screen now faced something real. There was no script, but instinct spoke louder. Dwayne squared his shoulders, preparing to act. His Jeep, powerful and imposing, was a fortress on wheels. He knew he could use it to create barriers, to destabilize the bikers without brute force. He was the impact. Tom, on the other hand, knew that agility and precision were his greatest weapons. His Mustang was fast, maneuverable, and he could use it to create confusion, to distract the attackers and protect the children. He was the strategy. The connection between them was immediate. Without needing a verbal plan, each knew exactly what had to be done. The hunt had begun. The roar of Dwayne Johnson's Jeep engine thundered through the road. His eyes were locked onto the gang of bikers surrounding the school bus. The tension in the air was palpable, and every second seemed to drag in slow motion. The sound of the motorcycles blended with the terrified cries of the children inside the bus, and Dwayne knew he had to act fast. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, the muscles in his forearms tensing with determination. The black Jeep surged forward with fierce momentum, its tires crushing the hot asphalt. The engine's growl and the piercing sound of the horn echoed through the road, a clear warning that something was about to change. The gang leader, a tall man with a scruffy beard and tattoos covering his arms, shot a defiant glare at Dwayne. His face was a mix of arrogance and surprise. To him, Dwayne was just another meddler who needed to be taught a lesson. But the gang leader had underestimated the man behind the wheel. The Jeep charged directly at the bikers, forcing them away from the bus. The psychological impact was immediate. Some of the bikers instinctively backed off, their eyes widening at the aggressive approach. However, one of the attackers tried to prove his courage. He revved his bike and lunged toward the Jeep's side, attempting to intimidate Dwayne. The move was reckless, desperate, and doomed to fail. Dwayne watched the biker approach with calculated calmness. At the last moment, he swerved the Jeep with precision. The biker lost balance, his body tilting to the side as his motorcycle skidded across the hot asphalt, sending sparks flying. The man tumbled, his helmet striking the pavement with a harsh, painful thud. Another biker, even bolder, swung a thick chain through the air. The heavy metal whistled, slicing through the wind with a menacing sound. His eyes locked onto Dwayne, trying to judge the perfect moment to strike. There was anger in his gaze, a desperate need to prove he wouldn't go down easily. The biker raised his arm and hurled the chain toward the Jeep's hood. Dwayne reacted with lightning speed. He extended his arm out the window and caught the chain mid-air. The weight of the metal pressed against his hand, the impact reverberating through his forearm like a shockwave. The biker's eyes widened in disbelief as he realized his weapon had been neutralized so effortlessly. Before he could react, Dwayne yanked the chain hard, pulling the man off his bike. His body dragged along the asphalt, his muffled screams drowned out by his helmet and the roaring engines. As chaos unfolded around the bus, Tom Cruise was readying his strategy. He was known for his agility and quick thinking, traits that made him an unstoppable force. Behind the wheel of his red Mustang, Tom swiftly assessed the situation. He knew Dwayne was handling the more aggressive bikers, creating the perfect opening for him to protect the children. The Mustang sped across the road and came to a sudden stop in front of the bus, forming an impenetrable barrier. The bus driver, an elderly man with white hair and trembling hands, looked at Tom with fear and uncertainty. His face reflected the exhaustion of someone who had no idea how to protect his young passengers. Tom stepped out quickly, his expression serious yet reassuring. The driver hesitated, but Tom's steady gaze calmed him. With a subtle nod, he signaled that everything would be fine, encouraging him to open the door. The old man, still nervous, obeyed, allowing Tom to step inside. Outside, the gang leader felt the crushing weight of defeat. His once confident and imposing companions now lay sprawled on the hot asphalt, groaning in pain or simply dazed. The roar of the motorcycles had faded into silence, replaced by a heavy, tense atmosphere. His pride, which had driven him to confront anyone who crossed his path, now felt like a burden dragging him down. He knew that losing control of the situation meant losing the respect of his men, meant becoming weak in the eyes of those who followed him. His eyes darted toward the children on the bus. Their faces were pressed against the windows, some still frightened, others fascinated by the presence of Dwayne Johnson and Tom Cruise. The leader searched for an escape, a way out, one last move to restore his dominance. But there was no more room to run. The men lying on the asphalt were a reminder that brute force alone would not be enough that day. He then looked at Dwayne Johnson, who stood firmly between the bus and the remnants of the chaos. His body was like a wall, arms crossed, legs planted, expression unwavering. Dwayne didn't need to speak. His presence alone was a clear warning that any attempt at retaliation would be useless. His gaze did not carry anger, but determination. It was the look of someone who knew his own power and wasn't afraid to use it to protect. The leader tightened his grip on the motorcycle's handlebars. His heart pounded, a mixture of frustration, fear, and wounded pride. He didn't want to surrender. He refused to accept that he had lost control to two men he saw as nothing more than action movie faces. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, pushing him toward one last act of desperation. He revved the engine, letting it roar in fury. The scorching asphalt radiated heat, and the acrid scent of burning rubber filled the air. The leader charged forward at full speed, aiming straight for Dwayne. If he could knock him down, maybe he could escape. Maybe he could salvage a shred of his shattered pride. But Dwayne did not move. His stance was solid, anchored to the ground like the deep roots of an ancient tree. As the motorcycle approached, he extended his arm with calculated precision and seized the handlebars with an astonishing grip. The impact was brutal. The bike's tires spun in vain, smoke billowing as the smell of burnt rubber intensified. The leader twisted the throttle, trying to push forward, but it was like ramming into a concrete wall. The leader's once aggressive gaze was now sheer desperation. He pulled at the handlebars, struggled to break free, but Dwayne's grip was unyielding. His muscles tensed with sheer force, holding the weight of the bike and the leader's futile attempts to fight back. And then, at last, the leader understood. There was nothing left to do. There was no fight left to win. Slowly, he released the handlebars. His hands trembled as he stepped back, his shoulders slumped in resignation. The engine noise faded, and an absolute silence took over the road. His eyes met Dwayne's one last time, but there was no defiance left, only the bitter acceptance of his defeat. As the gang leader stepped back, the sound of sirens filled the air. The flashing police lights appeared on the road, breaking the tension that had hung over the scene. Police cars pulled up swiftly, and officers moved with precision, handcuffing the fallen bikers and securing the situation. The criminals, now defeated and humiliated, were led one by one to the patrol cars, their heads lowered, their expressions filled with defeat. The bus driver, still trembling, carefully stepped down the stairs. His hands were sweaty, and he struggled to catch his breath, relieved that everything was finally over. His eyes glistened with emotion and his face reflected deep gratitude. Without finding the right words to say, he simply nodded toward Dwayne and Tom, a silent acknowledgement they both understood. The children cautiously began stepping off the bus, still trying to process what had just happened. Some ran to hug their friends, others quietly wiped away tears. A group of older kids looked at Dwayne and Tom with pure admiration. To them, these men were no longer just movie stars. They were real-life heroes, men who had faced danger firsthand to protect them. Tom looked at the young faces, some shy, others curious. Their eyes held a mixture of relief and awe. He had played heroes in films countless times, but this moment was different. There was something real, something tangible about what had just happened, something he had never felt before. Beside him, Dwayne took in the same scene. His imposing stance had softened, and his expression carried the silent gratitude of a man who understood the weight of responsibility. As the situation settled, the police officers thanked Dwayne and Tom for their bravery. The patrol cars pulled away, taking the captured bikers with them, and the road began to clear once again. The sun was now setting on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The heat of the asphalt began to fade, and a light breeze carried away the remnants of tension. The bus driver, now calmer, gave Dwayne and Tom one last look before returning to his seat. The children were still buzzing with excitement, some amazed, others emotional. The gratitude in their eyes was a reminder that, on this day, these two men had not just been action movie icons, they had been real-life heroes. Dwayne and Tom stepped back, exchanging a knowing glance. No words were needed. They both understood that this day would forever be etched in the memories of those young passengers, and in their own as well. The road, once a stage for chaos and fear, was now just an empty path beneath the twilight sky. Dwayne climbed into his Jeep, adjusted his cap, and started the engine. Tom walked to his Mustang, the warm breeze tousling his hair as he turned the key. As they drove off in opposite directions, they both carried the same certainty that today they had made a difference. For the children on that bus, this would become a story to tell and retell. A day when the impossible happened, and two heroes appeared to protect them when all seemed lost. If this story kept you hooked until the end, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss more exciting stories like this. See you in the next video.